Welcome back to the Buddhist Bookshelf YouTube channel. Today we will continue reading the Sorrowless Flower, written Ngoc Tran Dharma named Thien Phuc, episodes number 19. 254. Almsgiving, charity. Charity in Sanskrit is dana, meaning almsgiving. In general, this refers to an attitude of generosity. It involves developing an attitude of willingness to give away whatever one has in order to benefit sentient beings. In Mahayana Buddhism, this is one of the 6 paramitas or virtues of perfection. Charitable giving, the presentation of gift or alms to monks and nuns, the virtue of alms giving to the poor and needy, or making gifts to a bhikkhu or community of bhikkhus. Voluntary giving of material, energy, or wisdom to others, regarded as one of the most important Buddhist virtues. Dana is one of the 6 perfections, paramitas, and one of the most important of the meritorious works that a bodhisattva cultivates during the path to Buddhahood. In Theravada Buddhism, it is one of the 10 contemplations, anassati, and the most important meritorious activities, punya. It is seen as a key component in the meditative path, as it serves to overcome selfishness and provide benefits in both the present and future lives. Nowadays, the practice of giving alms to monks and nuns by laypeople is also called dana, and it is one of the most important religious activities for non-monastics in East Asian countries. Laypeople believe that gifts given to the Sangha would bring greater benefits than giving to other people, for besides the Buddha, monks and nuns are also referred as fields of merit in Buddhism. One should help other people, as best as one can, to satisfy their needs. When giving charity, one does not cherish the thought that he is the giver, and sentient beings are the receivers, what is given and how much is given, thus, in one's mind, no arrogance and self-conceit would arise. This is an unconditioned alms-giving or compassion on equality basis. Dana Paramita is also a gate of Dharma illumination, for with it, in every instance, we cause creatures to be pleasant, we adorn the Buddhist land, and we teach and guide stingy and greedy living beings. Especially, bodhisattvas give alms to all beings, so that they may be happy without investigating whether they are worthy or not. In the Jataka literature, many stories are found which show how the bodhisattva fulfilled the paramita charitable giving, the former birth stories of Gautama, when he was a bodhisattva, either in human form or non-human form. It is written that he practiced such types of paramita charitable giving. In the Mahakapi Jataka, the bodhisattva is a great monkey leader, who at the attack by men of the Varanasi king, allowed fellow monkeys to pass off safely by treading on his body, stretched as the extension of a bridge. In the Sasa Jataka, the bodhisattva is a young hare who offers his own body in the absence of any other thing to offer, just to observe the sacred vow. The story of Prince Vesantara, which is widely appreciated, shows Prince Vesantara in fulfillment of his vow to give whatever he is asked to give, not only surrenders the palladium of his father's kingdom, but even his own wife and children. According to the Visuddhimagga, great enlightening beings are concerned about the welfare of living beings, not tolerating the sufferings of beings, wishing long duration to the higher states of happiness of beings, and being impartial and just to all beings. By fulfilling the paramita charitable giving, they fulfill all other paramitas. According to the Apadana, the bodhisattva gave the gift to the needy. He then observed precepts perfectly and fulfilled the paramitas in the worldly renunciation. He then attained the supreme enlightenment. According to Vietnamese Chinese terms, boa means wide or unlimited, thai means giving. Charity, boa thai, means to give without any limits. Almsgiving of food or doctrine, with resultant benefits now and also hereafter in the form of reincarnation, as neglect or refusal will produce the opposite consequences. The Buddha taught, greed is the origin of various pains and sufferings in the cycle of births and deaths. For if there is greed, there is attachment, if there is attachment, there is bondage, if there is bondage, there is the cycle of births and deaths, if there is a cycle of rebirths, one is still a sentient being, if one is still a sentient being, there are still pains, sufferings, and afflictions. Realizing the calamities from greediness, the Buddha emphasized a Dharma door of generosity. In the explanation of the Sutra on the 8 realizations of the great beings, Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh explained practicing generosity as follows. Practicing generosity means to act in a way that will help equalize the difference between the wealthy and the impoverished. Whatever we do to ease others' suffering and create social justice can be considered practicing generosity. Practicing generosity is the first of the 6 paramitas. Paramita means to help others reach the other shore, the shore of liberation from sickness, poverty, hunger, ignorance, desires and passions, and birth and death. However, Buddha Dharma is always easy to speak but difficult to do. Giving means to give wealth or Buddha Dharma to others, but when you are in a situation to do so, you do not want to do. On the contrary, you demand that others give to you, the more the better. This is why people say Buddha Dharma is always easy to speak, but difficult to do. Buddhists should know that both concepts of giving to charity and making offerings mean the same thing. With regard to sentient beings, this act is called giving. With regard to parents, religious teachers, patriarchs, and other enlightened beings, this act is called making offerings. According to the Visuddhimagga, Buddhaghosa defines dana as follows. Danam vikati avakanham means to give with heart is really called a dana, though the word dana literally stands for 1. Charity, 2. Generosity, 3. Almsgiving, 4. Liberality, etc. It is Bodhisattva's perfection of gift when he offers, gives up or remains indifferent to his body. Besides, there are other kinds of dana. First, giving out of gratitude or giving in return for kindness received or one gives, thinking. He gave something. This is one of the 8 causes of dana or giving according to the Kosa Sastra. Second, giving courage to someone. Or bestowing of courage. The bestowing of confidence by every true Buddhist, i.e. that none may fear him. Absence or removal of fear, one of the 3 forms of giving. Giving out of fear or giving for fear of evil or one gives from fear. This is one of the 8 causes of dana or giving, according to the Kosa Sastra and Sanjiti Sutta in the long discourses of the Buddha. Third, giving for personal virtue or for the adornment of the heart and life. This is one of the 8 causes of dana or giving according to the Kosa Sastra. Fourth, giving dedicated to enlightenment, transcended the created and the uncreated. Fifth, giving in hope of bliss in the heaven, or giving because of hoping to be reborn in a particular heaven. This is one of the 8 causes of dana or giving according to the Kosa Sastra. Sixth, giving of the doctrine. Giving of the Dharma to preach or to speak Dharma to save sentient beings. Giving the Buddha's truth to save sentient beings. Seventh, giving because of tradition or custom or continuing the parental example of giving, one gives, thinking. It is good to give. This is one of the 8 causes of dana or giving according to the Kosa Sastra. Eighth, giving because of hoping to adorn and prepare one's heart. This is one of the 8 bases for giving, according to the Sanjiti Sutta in the long discourses of the Buddha. Ninth, giving as occasion offers, or giving of convenience or to those who come for aid. Giving according to wishes, satisfying others. This is one of the 8 causes of dana or giving, according to the Kosa Sastra and Sanjiti Sutta in the long discourses of the Buddha. 10th, giving appropriately, knowing superior, mediocre, and inferior. 11th, giving for acquiring a good reputation, or giving in hope of an honored name, one gives, thinking. If I make this gift I shall acquire a good reputation. This is one gives, thinking. If I make this gift I shall acquire a good reputation. This is one of the 8 bases for giving, according to the Sanjiti Sutta in the long discourses of the Buddha. This is also one of the 8 causes of dana or giving according to the Kosa Sastra. There are 2 kinds of dana or charity. First, giving of goods. Second, giving the Buddha's truth to save sentient beings. There are also 2 different kinds of dana or charity. First, pure or unsullied charity, which looks for no reward here, but only hereafter, expecting no return. Second, impure or sullied charity whose object is personal benefit, expecting something in return. There are 3 levels of dana. The first level of dana is the low degree of dana paramita. With compassion, a person gives alms, ordinary goods, to his relatives, wife, children. This is called dana paramita, given in low degree. The second level of dana is the middle degree of dana paramita. With compassion, a person his own head, eyes, arms, legs. This is called dana uppaparamita, given in middle degree. The third level of dana is the high degree of dana paramita. With compassion, a person gives his own life. This is called dana paramatha paramita, given in high degree. Besides, there are 3 different kinds of generosity. The first kind of dana is giving of material objects. Giving of material goods, that is, to give others money or goods. In this world, there is no one who is unable to perform some form of giving. No matter how impoverished one is, he should be able to give alms to those who are worse off than he, or to support a public work with however small a donation, if he has the will to do so. Even if there is someone who absolutely cannot afford to do so, he can be useful to others and to society by offering his services. Giving of goods or donating material goods such as flesh, food, meat, prey, gift, etc. Giving of wealth includes both outer and inner wealth. The outer wealth refers to one's kingdom and treasures, one's wife and sons. Those who practice the Bodhisattva way have no mark of self, so they are able to give away their kingdom, their homes and even their wives and sons. Sakyamuni Buddha, for example, should have become a king, but he chose instead to become a monk. He left his wife and his newly born son, relinquishing the glory of royalty. He went to the state of homelessness. The inner wealth, on the other hand, refers to one's own body, head, eyes, brains and marrow, skin, blood, flesh and bones. All can be given to others. The second kind of dana is the giving of law. If we feel satisfied only with the giving of wealth and materials, without helping sentient beings cultivate to transform their sufferings and afflictions, according to the Buddha, is not enough. The Buddha reminded about the supreme method in helping sentient beings is to help them cultivate wholesome deeds. According to the Maharatnakuta Sutra, chapter 24, the Bodhisattva Wonderful Sound preaches Dharmaprayaya in various shapes to different beings according to their ability and capacity. In chapter 25, Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva also preaches Dharmaprayaya in various shapes to different beings. According to the Buddha, there are 2 gifts, the carnal and spiritual. Of these 2 gifts, the spiritual is prominent. Giving of law means to teach others rightly. A person who has knowledge or wisdom in some field should be able to teach others or guide them, even if he has no money or is physically handicapped. Even a person of humble circumstances can perform giving of law. To speak of his own experience in order to benefit others can be his giving of the law. Therefore, according to Buddhism, giving of the law is to teach and transform all living beings by explaining the Buddha Dharma to them. The third kind of dana is the giving of fearlessness. Giving of fearlessness means to remove the anxieties or sufferings of others through one's own effort. To comfort others in order to help them overcome their difficult time can be considered as giving of fearlessness. When someone is terrified and encountering disasters or calamities, we try to use our own words or other efforts to remove his anxieties, sufferings and afflictions. This is the gift of fearlessness. The giving of fearlessness is the best way that can attribute a peaceful and happy atmosphere for everyone. There are 4 kinds of dana. First, giving of pens for other people to write the sutras. Second, giving of ink for other people to write the sutras. Third, giving of the sutras for other people to recite. Fourth, preaching the sutras for sentient beings so that they can cultivate to liberate themselves. There are 5 kinds of almsgiving. First, offer the almsgiving to those from afar, a distance. Second, offer the almsgiving to those going afar, going to a distance. Third, offer the almsgiving to the sick. Fourth, offer the almsgiving to the hungry. Sixth, offer the almsgiving to those wise in Buddhist doctrine. Besides these 5 kinds of giving, there are 5 kinds of people who pretend to give out of goodness of their hearts. The first kind of givers are people who talk of goodness or giving, but they never carry out what they say, only hollow speech or empty promises. The second kind of givers are people whose speech and actions contradict one another. The third kind of givers are people who give, but their minds always hope that their actions will be compensated and be returned in some way. The fourth kind of givers are people who give little but want a great deal in return. The fifth kind of givers are people who plant few seeds but wish to harvest abundance of fruits. There are 7 kinds of offerings. First, almsgiving to visitors or callers. Second, almsgiving to travelers. Third, almsgiving to the sick. Fourth, almsgiving to the nurses. Fifth, almsgiving to the monasteries. Sixth, almsgiving of daily food to the monks and nuns. Seventh, general almsgiving of clothing and food according to season. There are physical offerings, to offer service by one's labor, spiritual offerings, to offer a compassionate heart to others, offerings of eyes, to offer a warm glance to others which will give them tranquility, offerings of countenance, to offer a soft countenance with smile to others, oral offerings, to offer kind and warm words to relieve others, seed offerings, to offer one's seat to others, and offerings of shelters, to let others spend the night at one's home. There are 7 grounds for a happy karma through benevolence to the needy. First, almsgiving to visitors, travelers or strangers. Second, help the sick and their nurses. Third, gifts of gardens and groves to monasteries. Fourth, regular provision of food for the monks and the nuns. Fifth, regular provision of clothes for the monks and the nuns. Sixth, regular provision of medicines to the monks and the nuns. Seventh, practice almsgiving whenever possible. According to the middle-length discourses of the Buddha, Dakkanavabhanga Sutra, there are 7 kinds of offerings made to the Sangha. First, one gives offering to a Sangha of both bhikkhus and bhikkhunis headed by the Buddha. Second, one gives offering to a Sangha of both bhikkhus and bhikkhunis after the Tathagata has attained final nirvana. Third, one gives offering to a Sangha of bhikkhus. Fourth, one gives offering to a Sangha of bhikkhunis. Fifth, one gives offering and saying, "Appoint so many bhikkhus and bhikkhunis for me from the Sangha." Sixth, one gives offering, saying, "Appoint so many bhikkhus for me from the Sangha." Seventh, one gives offering, saying, "Appoint so many bhikkhunis for me from the Sangha." According to the Kosa Sastra, there are 8 causes of dana or giving. First, one gives as occasion offers, or giving of convenience or to those who come for aid. Second, giving for fear of evil. One gives from fear, or giving out of fear. Third, giving out of gratitude or giving in return for kindness received. One gives, thinking he gave something. Fourth, seeking reward giving or anticipating gifts in return. One gives, thinking, I give him something now, he will give me back something in the future. Fifth, giving because of tradition or custom, continuing the parental example of giving. One gives, thinking, it is good to give. Sixth, giving because of hoping to be reborn in a particular heaven. Seventh, giving for gaining name and fame or giving in hope of an honored name. One gives, thinking, if I make this gift I shall acquire a good reputation. Eighth, giving for personal virtue or for the adornment of the heart and life. According to the Sanjiti Sutta in the long discourses of the Buddha, there are 8 bases for giving. First, one gives as occasion offer. Second, one gives from fear. Third, one gives, thinking, he gave me something. Fourth, one gives, thinking, he will give me something. Fifth, one gives, thinking, it is good to give. Sixth, one gives, thinking, I am cooking something, they are not. It would not be right not to give something to those who are not cooking. Seventh, one gives, thinking, if I make this gift I shall acquire a good reputation. Eighth, one gives, thinking to adorn and prepare one's heart. According to the Flower Adornment Sutra, Chapter 38, there are 10 kinds of pure giving of great enlightening beings. Enlightening beings who abide by these 10 principles can accomplish the supreme pure magnanimous giving of Buddhas. First, impartial giving, not discriminating among sentient beings. Second, giving according to wishes, satisfying others. Third, unconfused giving, causing benefit to be gained. Fourth, giving appropriately, knowing superior, mediocre, and inferior. 5th, giving without dwelling, not seeking reward. 6th, open giving, without clinging attachment. 7th, total giving, being ultimately pure. 8th, giving dedicated to enlightenment, transcended the created and the uncreated. 9th, giving teach to sentient beings, never abandoning them, even to the side of enlightenment. 10th, giving with its 3 spheres pure, observing the giver, receiver, and gift with right awareness, as being like space. There are also 12 kinds of people who have truly good heart and genuine giving. 1st, benefit others without asking for anything in return. 2nd, help others without wishing for something in return. 3rd, make offerings to others without wishing for compensation, not even to be thanked. 4th, lower themselves, or less emphasis on self-importance, so others' wishes will be fully realized. 5th, let go of things that are difficult to let go. 6th, tolerate things that are difficult to tolerate. 7th, accomplish things that are difficult to accomplish. 8th, rescue when it is difficult to rescue. 9th, not to discriminate between relatives or strangers, but maintain an equal and fair mind in helping others as well as carrying out conducts that are proper to the truths. 10th, speak of goodness, then they should be able to make good what they say. This means speech and action are consistent with one another. 11th, have kind and gentle souls, who often carry out wholesome conducts without boasting to everyone. 12th, have only intent is simply to help others. Otherwise, they do not hope for fame, praise, notoriety or for self-benefits. Giving also includes boundless giving and no attachment in acts of charity. Boundless giving will bring the benefactors infinite and endless meritorious retributions. There are 5 categories of boundless giving. 1st, give to the Buddha. 2nd, give to the Sangha, or community of ordained Buddhist monks or nuns. 3rd, give to those who speak and elucidate the proper Dharma. 4th, give to one's father. 5th, give to one's mother. According to the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha reminded Subhuti about acts of charity without attachment as follows. Subhuti. Bodhisattvas in truth have no attachment in CTS of charity. One should not attach to sight while giving. One should not attach to sound, smell, taste, touch, or consciousness in giving. Subhuti. Bodhisattvas should give without attachment. Why, if they do, the merits and virtues are immeasurable. Also, Subhuti. Bodhisattvas who give without attachment have equal amounts of merit and virtue. It is incomprehensible and immeasurable. Subhuti. If bodhisattvas give with attachments, they are walking in darkness and see nothing. If bodhisattvas give without attachments, they are walking under the sun and everything is clear. In the Dharmapada Sutra, the Buddha taught, some people give according to their faith, or according to their pleasure. He who is envious of others' food and drink will not attain tranquility by day or by night. Dharmapada 249. He who fully cut off, uprooted and destroyed such feeling, gain peace by day and by night. Dharmapada 250. No gift is better than the gift of truth, Dharma. No taste is sweeter than the taste of truth. No joy is better than the joy of truth. No conquest is better than the conquest of craving, it overcomes all suffering. Dharmapada 354. Human beings are damaged by lust just as weeds damage the fields. Therefore, what is given to those who are lustless yields great reward. Dharmapada 356. Human beings are damaged by hatred in just the same manner as weeds damage the fields. Therefore, to give to those who are free from hatred yields great reward. Dharmapada 357. Human beings are damaged by delusion just like weeds damage the fields. Therefore, to give to those who are free from delusion yields great reward. Dharmapada 358. Human beings are damaged by craving just like weeds damage the fields. Therefore, to give to those who rid of craving yields great reward. Dharmapada 359. In the 42-section Sutra, the Buddha taught, when you see someone practicing the way of giving, help him joyously, and you will obtain vast and great blessings. As Saramana asked, Is there an end to those blessings? The Buddha said, consider the flame of a single lamp. Though 100,000 people come and light their own lamps from it, so that they can cook their food and ward off the darkness, the first lamp remains the same as before. Blessings are like this, too. Chapter 10. The Buddha said, giving food to 100 bad people does not equal to giving food to a single good person. Giving food to 1,000 good people does not equal to giving food to one person who holds the 5 precepts. Giving food to 10,000 people who hold the 5 precepts does not equal to giving food to a single Sratapanna. Giving food to 1,000,000 Sratapannas does not equal to giving food to a single Sakradagaman. Giving food to 10 million Sakradagamans does not equal to giving food to one single Anagaman. Giving food to 100 million Anagamans does not equal to giving food to a single Arahant. Giving food to 10 billion Arahants does not equal to giving food to a single Pratyekabuddha. Giving food to 100 billion Pratyekabuddhas does not equal to giving food to a Buddha of the 3 periods of time. Giving food to 10 trillion Buddhas of the 3 periods of time does not equal to giving food to a single one who is without thoughts, without dwelling, without cultivation, and without accomplishment. Chapter 11. Charity does not merely mean to give away what one has in abundance, but it involves even the giving up of one's whole being for a cause. Charity, or giving, including the bestowing of the truth, encourage giving on others. Giving paramita is used to destroy greed, selfishness, and stinginess, at the same time to increase blessings. According to the sutra in 42 sections, chapter 10, the Buddha said, when you see someone practicing the way of giving, help him joyously, and you will obtain vast and great blessings. As Saramana asked, is there an end to those blessings? The Buddha said, consider the flame of a single lamp. Though 100,000 people come and light their own lamps from it, so that they can cook their food and ward off the darkness, the first lamp remains the same as before. Blessings are like this, too. 255. Dana Paramita. Paramita charitable giving. One should help other people, as best as one can, to satisfy their needs. When giving charity, one does not cherish the thought that he is the giver, and sentient beings are the receivers, what is given and how much is given. Thus, in one's mind no arrogance and self-conceit would arise. This is an unconditioned alms-giving or compassion on equality basis. Dana Paramita is also a gate of Dharma illumination, for with it, in every instance, we cause creatures to be pleasant, we adorn the Buddhist land, and we teach and guide stingy and greedy living beings. Some people think that they can only practice generosity if they are wealthy. This is not true. Some people who are wealthy seldom practice generosity. If they do with the aim of gaining fame, merit, profiting, or pleasing others. Generous and compassionate people are seldom rich. Why? First of all, because they always share whatever they have with others. Secondly, because they are not willing to enrich their lives financially at the cost of others' poverty. Thus, the Buddha reminded us on the generosity paramita. Generosity paramita means we should consider everyone equally when we practice charitable giving, not discriminating against anyone, i.e. to give alms to relatives, and not to give alms to enemies, etc. Charity or giving paramita is to give away for the benefit and welfare of all beings anything and everything one is capable of giving. Not only material goods, but knowledge, worldly as well as religious or spiritual, or knowledge belonging to the Dharma, the ultimate truth. The Bodhisattvas were all ready to give up even their lives to save others. Charity does not merely mean to give away what one has in abundance, but it involves even the giving up of one's whole being for a cause. Charity, or giving, including the bestowing of the truth, encourage giving on others. The path of giving. Giving paramita is used to destroy greed, selfishness, and stinginess. The reward stimulated by dana is enrichment. The opposite of charity is meanness. In the Lotus Sutra, Introduction Chapter, Maitreya Bodhisattva addresses Manjusri Bodhisattva that within the ehel hair mark emitted by the Buddha, the world-honored one, he can see bodhisattvas as numberless as the grains of the sands in the Ganges River, are giving all kinds of charity such as gold, silver, pearls, seashell, diamonds. Not only do these bodhisattvas give valuable objects, but they even give their bodies, their own flesh, their hands and feet. These bodhisattvas practice such giving in order to attain the supreme enlightenment. According to the Maharatnakuta Sutra, bodhisattvas who have attained the realization of the non-arising of dharmas always practice dana paramita for the benefits of other sentient beings. In the chapter 12, Devadatta, Sakyamuni Buddha himself describes that during many thousands of eons that long back when he had been a king, he had taken this strong resolution to arrive at supreme perfect enlightenment. For that he exerted himself to fulfill the 6 paramitas, and he has given innumerable without a thought of self-complacency. Also in this chapter, Bodhisattva Prajnakuta says that he himself had seen the blessed Sakyamuni, the Tathagata, performing numberless charitable tasks while he was striving after enlightenment. And during many eons the Buddha did not feel satisfied about his arduous tasks. He went everywhere for the welfare of sentient beings. 256. Observation of precepts. Every one of us knows that holding precepts means holding precepts, but when challenges comes, we break the precepts instead of holding them. Keeping precepts teaches us that we cannot truly save others unless we remove our own cankers by living a moral and upright life. However, we must not think that we cannot guide others just because we are not perfect ourselves. Keeping precepts is also a good example for others to follow. This is another form of helping others. Holding the precepts also means to observe the precepts with the mind that does not move. No matter what state you encounter, your mind does not move. Even though when Mount Tai has a landslide, you are not startled. When a beautiful woman passes in front of you, you are not affected. This is the key to the door of the great enlightenment in Buddhism. This is also an essential samadhi for any Buddhist cultivator to turn states around. Whether the state is good or bad, pleasant or adverse, if you remain calm, composed, and not to break any precepts, the wind will surely calm down, and the waves will naturally subside. The Sanskrit term sila means observing the precepts given by Buddha, which are conducive to moral life. In the case of the homeless ones, the precepts are meant to maintain the order of the brotherhood. The brotherhood is a model society, the ideal of which is to lead a peaceful, harmonious life. Sila paramita or pure observance of precepts, keeping the commandments, upholding the precepts, the path of keeping precepts, or moral conduct, etc., is the practicing of all the Buddhist precepts, or all the virtuous deeds that are conducive to the moral welfare of oneself and that of others. Maintaining precept paramita is used to destroy violating precepts and degrading the Buddha Dharma. The rules of the perfect morality of bodhisattvas, the second of the 6 paramitas. Bodhisattvas must observe the moral precepts and guard them as they would hold a precious pearl. Lay people, if they cannot observe 250 or 348 precepts, they should try to observe at least 5 or 10 precepts of wholesome actions. Abstention from taking life, abstention from taking what is not given, abstention from wrong conduct, abstention from intoxicants, abstention from lying speech, abstention from harsh speech, abstention from indistinct prattling, abstention from covetousness, abstention from ill will, abstention from wrong views. According to the Lotus Sutra, bodhisattvas observe and guard the moral precepts as they would hold a precious pearl in their hand. Their precepts are not the slightest deficient. The perfection of morality lies in equanimity in thought and action toward the sinner, and no remarkable pride to appreciate the merited. This is the non-clinging way of looking into things that provides reason to the thought of pure kind, and a clear vision unblurred from biases. 257. Right effort. Our mind is easy to set great effort, but is also easily prone to retrogression. Once hearing the Dharma and advice, we bravely advance with our great efforts, but when we encounter obstacles, we not only grow lax and lazy retrogression, but also change our direction, and sometimes fall into heterodox ways. In Buddhism, devotion is also one of the 7 Bhajanga: vigor, valor, fortitude, virility. For the sake of welfare and happiness of others. Bodhisattvas constantly exert their energy or perseverance. Here virya does not mean physical strength, though this is an asset, but strength of character, which is far superior. It is defined as the persistent effort to work for the welfare of others both in thought and deed. Firmly establishing himself in this virtue, the bodhisattva develops self-reliance and makes it one of his prominent characteristics. The virya of a bodhisattva is clearly depicted in the Mahanaka Jataka. Shipwrecked in the open sea for 7 days, he struggled on without once giving up hope until he was finally rescued. Failures he views as steps to success, opposition causes him to double his exertion, dangers increase his courage, cutting his way through difficulties, which impair the enthusiasm of the feeble, surmounting obstacles, which dishearten the ordinary. He looks straight toward his goal. Nor does he ever stop until his goal is reached. Effort in Buddhism implies mental energy and not physical strength. The latter is dominant in animals, whereas mental energy is so in man, who must stir up and develop this mental factor in order to check evil and cultivate healthy thoughts. Sincere Buddhists should never give up hope or cease to make an effort, for even as a bodhisattva, the Buddha never ceased to strive courageously. He was a typical example of energy. According to the Buddhavamsa, as an aspirant for Buddhahood, the Buddha was inspired by the words of his predecessors. Be full of zealous effort. Advance. In his endeavor to gain final enlightenment, the Buddha spared no effort. With determined persistence, he advanced towards his goal, his enlightenment, caring nothing for life. The Sanskrit term virya etymologically means virility. It is always to be devoted and energetic in carrying out everything that is in accordance with the Dharma. Devotion or striving means a constant application of oneself to the promotion of good. In general, virya refers to an attitude of sustained enthusiasm for religious practice. The Mahanist's life is one of utmost strenuousness not only in this life, but in the lives to come, and the lives to come may have no end. Virya also means energy or zeal, earnestness, diligence, vigor, or the path of endeavor, and progress in practicing the other 5 paramitas. Vigor paramita is the 4th of the 6 paramitas, and it is used to destroy laziness and procrastination. Here a monk, on seeing an object with the eye, or hearing the sounds, or smelling a smell, tasting a flavor, touching an object, does not grasp at the whole or its details, striving to restrain what might cause evil, unwholesome states, such as hankering or sorrow, to flood in on him. Thus he watches over the sense of sight and guards it, watches over the sense of hearing, smelling, tasting, touching and guards them. He is said to have the effort of restraint. Effort in Buddhism implies mental energy and not physical strength. What is the effort to abandon? Effort to abandon means the effort or the will to abandon the evil, unwholesome thoughts that have already arisen. Here the practitioner does not admit sense desire that have arisen, but abandons, discards and repels them, makes an end of them. The practitioner should do the same with regard to thoughts of ill will and of harm that have arisen. Here a monk who does not assent to a thought of lust, of hatred, of cruelty, makes them disappear. This monk is said to have the effort of abandoning. Effort to maintain means to try to maintain wholesome thoughts that have already arisen. Here a monk who keeps firmly in his mind a favorable object of concentration which has arisen, such as a skeleton, or a corpse that is full of worms, blue-black, full of holes, bloated. He is said to have the effort of preservation. What is the effort to prevent? Effort to prevent means the effort or the will to prevent the arising of evil, of unwholesome thoughts that have not yet arisen. When a practitioner sees a form, hears a sound, smells an odor, tastes a flavor, feels some tangible thing, or cognizes a mental object, and so forth, he apprehends neither signs nor particulars. That is, he is not moved by their general features or by their details. Therefore, evil and unwholesome thoughts cannot break in upon one who dwells with senses restrained. He applies himself to such control. He guards over the senses, restrains the senses. What is the effort not to initiate sins not yet arisen? Endeavor to prevent evil from forming. Preventing evil that hasn't arisen from arising, to prevent any evil from starting or arising. To prevent emerit from arising. Here a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen evil unwholesome mental states. What is the effort to initiate virtues not yet arisen? Endeavor to start performing good deeds. Bringing forth goodness not yet brought forth, bring good into existence. To induce the doing of good deeds. Here a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen wholesome mental states. What is the effort to consolidate, increase, and not deteriorate virtues already arisen, or endeavor to perform more good deeds? Effort to consolidate, increase, and not deteriorate virtues already arisen, one of the four right efforts. Effort to consolidate, increase, and not deteriorate virtues already arisen. Developing goodness that is already arisen, develop existing good, or to increase merit when it was already produced, or to encourage the growth and continuance of good deeds that have already started. Developing goodness that is already arisen, develop existing good. To increase merit when it was already produced. To encourage the growth and continuance of good deeds that have already started. Here a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. What is the effort to develop? Effort in Buddhism implies mental energy and not physical strength. What is the effort to develop? Effort to develop means to put forth the effort or the will to produce and develop wholesome thoughts that have not yet arisen. Here a practitioner develops the factors of enlightenment based on seclusion, on dispassion, on cessation that ends in deliverance, namely, mindfulness, investigation of the Dhamma, energy, rapturous joy, calm, concentration and equanimity, based on solitude, detachment, extinction, leading to maturity of surrender. He is said to have the effort of development. In Buddhist cultivation, diligent cultivation does not only include meditation, correct sitting and controlling the breath, or that we must not be lazy, letting days and months slip by neglectfully. We should also know how to feel satisfied with few possessions, and eventually cease looking for joy in desires and passions completely. Diligent cultivation also means that we must use our time to meditate on the four truths of permanence, suffering, selflessness, and impurity. We must also penetrate deeply into the profound meaning of the four foundations of mindfulness, to see that all things as well as our bodies are constantly changing from becoming to maturing, transformation, and destruction. Diligent cultivation also means to obtain correct understanding and concentration, so that we can destroy narrow-mindedness. Among the basic desires and passions, narrow-mindedness has the deepest roots. Thus, when these roots are loosened, all other desires, passions, greed, anger, ignorance, and doubt are also uprooted. 258. Endurance. Endurance is one of the most important qualities in nowadays society. If we do not have the ability to endure, we cannot cultivate the way. Sakyamuni Buddha was endowed with all the virtues and became the Buddha through his constant practice. No matter what biography of Sakyamuni Buddha we read or which of the sutras, we find that nowhere is it recorded that the Buddha ever became angry. However severely he was persecuted and however coldly his disciples turned against him and departed from him, he was always sympathetic and compassionate. As Buddhists, we should always remember that no action that makes Sakyamuni Buddha more disappointed than when we become angry about something, and we reproach others or when we blame others for our own wrongs. It does not really matter whether you sit in meditation or recite the Buddha's name or recite the name of Bodhisattva Quan Sha Yin, we need to have patience before we can succeed. If we lack patience, then we will never be able to cultivate any Dharma door successfully. If we do not have patience, we always feel that everything is wrong and bad. Nothing ever suits us. In short, if we are able to practice the endurance of the Bodhisattvas, we cease to become angry or reproachful toward others, or toward anything in the universe. We are apt to complain about the weather when it rains or when it shines, and to grumble about the dust when we have a day with fine weather. However, When through endurance we attain a calm and untroubled mind, we become thankful for both the rain and the sun. Then our minds become free from changes in our circumstances. Patience means patiently endure the things that do not turn out the way you wish them to. Kshanti generally translated patience or resignation or humility when it is one of the 6 paramitas. But when it occurs in connection with the Dharma that is unborn, it would be rather translated acceptance or recognition or submission. Ksanti is a Sanskrit term for an attitude of forbearance, one of the 6 paramitas. In Mahayana, it is the third of the perfection that a bodhisattva cultivates on the path to Buddhahood. Endurance is an especially important quality in Buddhism. Patience is one of the most attributes of a Buddhist practitioner. Patience is inner calm and strength that enables us to act clearly in any difficult situation. The Buddha always teaches his disciples, if you try to rub 2 pieces of wood together to get fire, but before fire is produced, you stop to do something else, only to resume later, you would never obtain fire. Likewise, a person who cultivates sporadically, e.g., during retreats or on weekends, but neglects daily practice, can never achieve lasting results. According to the Abhidharmakosa, Kshanti is used in a way contrasted to jnana. Kshanti is not knowledge of certainty, which jnana is, for in Kshanti doubt has not yet been entirely uprooted. Endurance must be cultivated in all circumstances. First, endurance in adverse circumstances. Patience is of utmost importance. We must endure the things that we ordinarily find unendurable. For instance, maybe we do not want to put up with a scolding, but if someone scolds us, we should be happy about it. Perhaps we do not want to be beaten, but if someone beats us, we should be even happier. Perhaps we do not wish to die, because life is very precious. However, if someone wants to kill us, we should think thus: this death can deliver us from the karmic obstacles of this life. He is truly our wise teacher. Second, endurance in the religious state. Zen practitioners should sit in meditation until obtaining great samadhi. A person who cultivates the Dharma door of reciting the Buddha's name, he should be constantly mindful of the phrase Namo Amitabha Buddha and never stop reciting it. Rain or shine, he should always recite the same phrase. We can only measure our level of attainment and patience of the body and mind when we are contempted, slandered, under calamities, under injustice and all other obstacles. If we want to accomplish the bodhisattvahood, we should always be forbearing in both the body and the mind. Realization of the Dharma of non-appearance is called anupatikarmikshanti. Calm rest, as a bodhisattva, in the assurance of no rebirth. The stage of endurance, or patient meditation, that has reached the state where phenomenal illusion ceases to arise, through entry into the realization of the void, or noumenal of all things. This is the recognition that nothing has been born or created in this world, that when things are seen from the point of view of absolute knowledge, they are nirvana themselves, are not at all subject to birth and death. When one gains anupatikarmikshanti, one has realized the ultimate truth of Buddhism. There are 3 kinds of endurance. First, not being upset with those who harm us. This type of patience enables us to be clear-minded and calm, no matter how others treat us. We usually blame the other person and become agitated when we receive harm. Sometimes our agitation takes the form of self-pity and depression, and we usually complain about how badly others treat us. Other times, it becomes anger and we retaliate by harming the other person. We should always remember that if we want other people to forgive our shortcomings, other people do wish us to be tolerant too, and not to take what they say and do to heart when their emotions get out of control. Second, transcending problems and pain with a positive attitude. The patience to transcend problems enables us to transform painful situations, such as sickness and poverty, into supports for our Dharma practice. Rather than becoming depressed or angry when we're plagued with difficulties, we'll learn from these experiences and face them with courage. Third, enduring difficulties encountered in Dharma practice. Enduring difficulties makes us more compassionate toward those in similar situations. Our pride is deflated, our understanding of cause and effect increases, and we won't be lazy to help someone in need. Patience is a necessary quality when practicing Dharma. Sometimes it's difficult to understand the teachings of the Buddha, to control our minds, or to discipline ourselves. Patience helps us overcome this and to wrestle with our unruly minds. Rather than expecting instant results from practicing briefly, we'll have the patience to cultivate our minds continuously in a long period of time. Also, there are 5 kinds of tolerance. These are 5 stages of bodhisattvic sati, patience or endurance. The first kind of endurance is self-control or conquering tolerance. With this tolerance, the cultivator is able to drown all greed, hatred and ignorance. The causes of passion and delusion controlled but not finally cut off, the condition of the differentiated bodhisattvas, 10 stages, 10 practices, and 10 dedications. Second, faith tolerance from the stage of joy to the land of purity and the land of radiance. The cultivator purely believes that good deeds will result good consequences. Third, natural tolerance from the blazing land to the land of extremely difficult to conquer. This tolerance using the pure Buddha-like intrinsic and natural that only bodhisattvas have, or the patience progress towards the end of mortality. Fourth, no thought tolerance from the far-reaching land to the immovable land and the land of good thoughts. This is tolerance as vast and wide as the open sky, or patience for full apprehension of the truth of no rebirth. Fifth, Maha-nirvana tolerance, or nirvana tolerance, or the patience nirvana, the tolerance in the last stage of Dharma Megha, or the land of Dharma clouds. This is the tolerance of Buddha, everything is peaceful and tranquil, or the patience that leads to complete nirvana. Besides, there are also 6 kinds of endurance, 8 kinds of endurance and 10 kinds of endurance. 6 kinds of endurance include faith patience or faith endurance, ability to bear external hardships, ability to bear endurance during practicing, right patience or patience in any circumstances, undefiled endurance, and omniscient endurance. Faith endurance means to abide patiently in the faith and repeat the name of Amitabha, or to believe in the truth and attain the patient faith. According to the Thien Phuc sect, the differentiated teaching means the unperturbed faith of the bodhisattva that all dharma is unreal. Dharmic shanti means acceptance of the statement that all things are as they are, not being subject to the law of birth and death, which prevails only in the phenomenal world created by our wrong discrimination. Dharmic shanti also means patience attained through dharma to overcome illusion. Also, ability to bear patiently external hardships. Ability to bear endurance during practicing is stage during which bodhisattvas who practice the 10 kinds of dedication and meditation of the mean have patience in all things, for they see that all things, phenomena and noumena, harmonize. Right patience or patience in any circumstances. Undefiled endurance means the endurance of Buddha to be stage of bodhisattvas. The stage of undefiled endurance means the final stage of a bodhisattva. Omniscient endurance, that of a Buddha. The 8 kshanti or powers of patient endurance, in the desire realm and the 2 realms above it. The 8 powers of endurance are used to seize false or perplexed views in Trilokya and acquire 8 kinds of prajna or wisdom. 8 endurances include the 4 axioms or truth in the sense of desire. In the sense of desire, there are endurance or patience of suffering, endurance or patience of the cause of suffering, endurance or patience of the elimination of suffering, and endurance or patience of cultivation of the path of elimination of suffering. Endurance or patience of suffering is one of the 8 kshanti or powers of patient endurance, in the desire realm and the 2 realms above it. The 8 powers of endurance are used to seize false or perplexed views in Trilokya and acquire 8 kinds of prajna or wisdom. Endurance or patience of the cause of suffering is one of the 8 kshanti or powers of patient endurance, in the desire realm and the 2 realms above it. The 8 powers of endurance are used to seize false or perplexed views in Trilokya and acquire 8 kinds of prajna or wisdom. Endurance or patience of the elimination of suffering is one of the 8 kshanti or powers of patient endurance, in the desire realm and the 2 realms above it. The 8 powers of endurance are used to seize false or perplexed views in Trilokya and acquire 8 kinds of prajna or wisdom. Endurance or patience of cultivation of the path of elimination of suffering in the realm sense desire is the path to eliminate all kinds of afflictions. Besides, there are 4 same kinds of endurance in the realm of form and formless. There are also 8 kinds of patience that accompany with 8 kinds of wisdom. First, patience with dharmas of suffering which goes along with wisdom concerning dharmas of suffering. Second, patience with kinds of suffering which goes along with wisdom concerning kinds of suffering. Third, patience with dharmas of accumulation which goes along with wisdom concerning dharmas of accumulation. Fourth, patience with kinds of accumulation which goes along with wisdom concerning kinds of accumulation. Fifth, patience with dharmas of extinction which goes along with wisdom concerning dharmas of extinction. Sixth, patience with kinds of extinction which goes along with wisdom concerning kinds of extinction. Seventh, patience with dharmas of the way which goes along with wisdom concerning dharmas of the way. Eighth, patience with kinds of the way which goes along with wisdom concerning kinds of the way. According to the Flower Adornment Sutra, the Flower Adornment Sutra chapter 29, there are 10 kinds of acceptance. Enlightening beings who attain these 10 acceptances will manage to arrive at the stage of unhindered acceptance. They are acceptance of the voice of the teaching, conformative acceptance, acceptance of the non-origination of all things, acceptance of illusoriness, acceptance of being mirage-like, acceptance of being dreamlike, acceptance of being echo-like, acceptance of being like a reflection, acceptance of being phantom-like, and acceptance of being space-like. According to the Flower Adornment Sutra, chapter 38, there are 10 kinds of pure tolerance of great enlightening beings. Enlightening beings who abide by these can attain all Buddha's supreme tolerance of truth, understanding without depending on another. First, pure tolerance calmly enduring slander and vilification to protect sentient beings. Second, pure tolerance calmly enduring weapons to protect self and others. Third, pure tolerance not arousing anger and viciousness, the mind being unshakable. Fourth, pure tolerance not attacking the low, being magnanimous when above. Fifth, pure tolerance saving all who come for refuge, giving up one's own life. Sixth, pure tolerance free from conceit, not slighting the uncultivated. Seventh, pure tolerance not becoming angered at injury because of observation of illusoriness. Eighth, pure tolerance not revenging offenses because of not seeing self and other. Ninth, pure tolerance not following afflictions, being detached from all objects. 10th, pure tolerance knowing all things have no origin, in accord with the true knowledge of enlightening beings, entering the realm of universal knowledge without depending on the instruction of another. In the Dharmapada Sutra, the Buddha taught, "As an elephant in the battlefield endures the arrows shot from a bow, I shall withstand abuse in the same manner." Truly, most common people are undisciplined, who are jealous of the disciplined. Dharmapada 320. To lead a tamed elephant in battle is good. To tame an elephant for the king to ride it better. He who tames himself to endure harsh words patiently is the best among men. Dharmapada 321. According to the sutra in 42 sections, chapter 15, Asramana asked the Buddha, "What is the greatest strength? What is the utmost brilliance?" The Buddha said, "Patience under insult is the greatest strength because those who are patient do not harbor hatred, and they are increasingly peaceful and settled. Those who are patient are without evil and will certainly be honored among people. To put an end to the mind's defilement so that it is pure and untainted is the utmost brilliance. When there is nothing in any of the 10 directions throughout existence, from before the formation of heaven and earth, until this very day, that you do not see, know or hear, when all wisdom is obtained, achieved, that can be called brilliance." 259. Ksanti Paramita. Ksanti Paramita or patience paramita or humility is sometimes rendered patience, but humility is more to the point. Rather than merely enduring all sorts of ills of the body, it is the feeling of unworthiness, limitlessness, and sinfulness. In other words, humility or patience, or forbearance under insult of other beings as well hot and cold weather. Tolerance paramita is used to destroy anger and hatred. Endurance paramita, or forbearance paramita, patience paramita, or ksanti paramita, is the third of the 6 paramitas. It means to bear insult and distress without resentment. It is also a gate of Dharma illumination, for with it, we abandon all anger, arrogance, flattery, and foolery, and we teach and guide living beings who have such vices. There are bodhisattvas who have left home to become bhiksus and dwell deep in the forest or in mountain caves. Evil people may strike or rebuke them, the bodhisattvas must endure patiently. When evil beasts bite them, they are able to bear all this because they seek the Buddha way, as in Vajrakshetika Prajna Paramita Sutra, the Buddha told Subhuti. Subhuti, the Tathagata speaks of the perfection of patience, which is not but is called the perfection of patience. Why? Because Subhuti, in a past, when my body was mutilated by Kalaraja, I had at that time no notion of an ego, no notion of a personality, no notion of a being and a life. I would have been stirred by feelings of anger and hatred. Subhuti, I also remember that in the past, during my former 500 lives, I was Aksanti and held no conception of an ego, no conception of a personality, no conception of a being and a life. Therefore, Subhuti, bodhisattvas should forsake all conceptions of form and resolve to develop the supreme enlightenment mind. Their mind should not abide in form, sound, smell, taste, touch and dharma. Their mind should always abide nowhere. If mind abides somewhere, it should be in falsehood. This is why the Buddha says bodhisattva's mind should not abide in form when practicing charity. Subhuti, all bodhisattvas should thus make offering for the welfare of all living beings. The Tathagata speaks of forms which are not forms and of living beings who are not living beings. Endurance paramita, or forbearance paramita, patience paramita, or kshanti paramita, is the third of the 6 paramitas. It means to bear insult and distress without resentment. It is also a gate of Dharma illumination, for with it, we abandon all anger, arrogance, flattery, and foolery, and we teach and guide living beings who have such vices. 260. Endurance and moderation. Endurance and moderation are the foundation, the beginning of our practice. To start, we simply follow the practice and schedule set up by Ursul in a retreat or monastery. Those who practice Buddhist teachings should limit themselves in regard to food, robes, and living quarters, to bring them down to bare essentials, to cut away infatuation. These practices are the basis for concentration. Constant mindfulness in all postures and activities will make the mind calm and clear. But this calm is not the end point of practice. Tranquil states give the mind a temporary rest, as eating will temporarily remove hunger, but that is not all there is to life. We must use the calm mind to see things in a new light, the light of wisdom. When the mind becomes firm in this wisdom, we will not adhere to worldly standards of good and bad, and will not be swayed by external conditions. With wisdom, dung can be used for fertilizer. All our experiences become sources of insight. Normally, we want praise and dislike criticism, but, seen with a clear mind, we see them as equally empty. Thus, we can let go of all these things and find peace. During the period of meditation, we should be mindful on our breathing. If we have uncomfortable feelings in the chest, just take some deep breaths. If the mind wanders, just hold our breath and let the mind go where it will not go anywhere. You can change postures after an appropriate time, but do not let restlessness or feelings of discomfort bother us. Sometimes it is good just to sit on them. We feel hot, legs are painful, we are unable to concentrate, just contemplate all things in the light of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness and no self, and just continue to sit still. The feelings will get more and more intense, and then hit a breaking point, after which we will be calm and cool. Do not worry about enlightenment. When growing a tree, we plant it, fertilize it, keep the bugs away, and if these things are done properly, the tree will naturally grow. How quickly it grows, however, is something beyond our control. At first, endurance and persistence are necessary, but after a time, faith and certainty arise. Then we see the value of practice and want to do it. At the same time, we want to avoid socializing and be by ourselves in quiet places for practicing meditation. Being aware of whatever we do, peace and calmness will follow naturally. 261. Virya Paramita. Virya Paramita, or making right efforts, means to proceed straight toward an important target without being distracted by trivial things. We cannot say we are assiduous when our ideas and conduct are impure, even if we devoted ourselves to the study and practice of the Buddha's teachings. Even when we devote ourselves to study and practice, we sometimes do not meet with good results or may even obtain adverse effects, or we may be hindered in our religious practice by others. But such matters are like waves rippling on the surface of the ocean. They are only phantoms, which will disappear when the wind dies down. Therefore, once we have determined to practice the Bodhisattva way, we should advance single-mindedly toward our destination without turning aside. This is making right efforts. Devotion or striving means a constant application of oneself to the promotion of good. The Mahanist's life is one of utmost strenuousness not only in this life, but in the lives to come, and the lives to come may have no end. Virya also means energy or zeal, earnestness, diligence, vigor, the path of endeavor, and progress in practicing the other 5 paramitas. Vigor Paramita is used to destroy laziness and procrastination. According to Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, in the explanation of the Sutra on the 8 realizations of the great beings, diligence paramita is one of the most important subjects of meditation in Buddhism. Diligent practice destroys laziness. After we cease looking for joy in desires and passions and know how to feel satisfied with few possessions, we must not be lazy, letting days and months slip by neglectfully. Great patience and diligence are needed continually to develop our concentration and understanding in the endeavor of self-realization. We must whatever time we have to meditate on the 4 truths of impermanence, suffering, selflessness, and impurity. We must penetrate deeply into the profound meaning of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, practicing, studying, and meditating on the postures and cycles of becoming, maturing, transformation, and destruction of our bodies, as well as our feelings, sensations, mental formations, and consciousness. We should read sutras and other writings which explain cultivation and meditation, correct sitting and controlling the breath, such as the Satipatthana Sutta and the Mahaprajna Paramita Heart Sutra. We have to follow the teachings of these sutras and practice them in an intelligent way, choosing the methods which best apply to our own situation. As necessary, we can modify the method suggested in order to accommodate our own needs. Our energy must also be regulated until all the basic desires and passions, greed, anger, narrow-mindedness, arrogance, doubt, and preconceived ideas, are uprooted. At this time we will know that our bodies and minds are liberated from the imprisonment of birth and death, the 5 skandhas, and the 3 worlds. Virya Paramita is a gate of Dharma illumination, for with it, we completely attain all good dharmas, and we teach and guide lazy living beings. This is the 4th of the 6 paramitas. Virya is resolution in pursuing the goal of cultivation. Virya is the source of energy to begin any Buddhist's cultivation career, and to see it through full awakening. Energy and stamina serve as armor in encounters with difficulties, and provide the encouragement necessary to avoid depression. Energy also produces enthusiasm and good spirits. Energy also helps us to accomplish the welfare of all living beings. According to the Lotus Sutra, a bodhisattva should strive with heroic vigor for purification. The Lachua Sutra also depicts in detail the way bodhisattvas practice Virya Paramita, by going without eating and sleeping to study the Buddha Dharma. They do not deliberately refrain from food in order to cultivate Buddhahood. In fact, they just forget the idea of food and sleep. They think only of cultivating and studying the Buddha Dharma for getting supreme enlightenment. 262. Prajna Paramita. The difference between buddhi and jnana is sometimes difficult to point out definitively, for they both signify worldly relative knowledge as well as transcendental knowledge. While prajna is distinctly pointing out the transcendental wisdom, knowledge paramita or knowledge of the true definition of all dharmas. The cultivation of the bodhisattva's intellectual and spiritual journey comes with his ascent to the jnana paramita, then immediately preceding his transformation into a fully awakened Buddha. The most significant event in this level and the paramount symbol of the bodhisattva's highest accomplishment is Entrance into a meditative state of balanced concentration immersed in non-dualistic knowledge of emptiness. This event is represented by his initiation into the omniscience of a perfect Buddha, which is quintessential perfection. Knowledge perfection or prajna paramita has an analysis quality which does not seem to figure as a specific characteristic of non-dualistic knowledge developed by the bodhisattva at the stage of jnana paramita. So, whereas jnana refers more to intellectual knowledge, prajna paramita has more to do with intuition. The prajna paramita or paramita wisdom means the right way of seeing things and the power of discerning the true aspects of all things. Wisdom is the ability both to discern the differences among all things and to see the truth common to them. In short, wisdom is the ability to realize that anybody can become a Buddha. The Buddha's teachings stress that we cannot discern all things in the world correctly until we are completely endowed with the ability to know both distinction and equality. We cannot save others without having wisdom, because even though we want to do good to others, but we don't have adequate knowledge on what should be done and what should not be done, we may end up doing some harm to others. There is no corresponding English word for prajna, in fact, no European word for it, for European people have no experience specifically equivalent to prajna. Prajna is the experience a man has when he feels in its most fundamental sense the infinite totality of things, that is, psychologically speaking, when the finite ego, breaking its hard crust, refers itself to the infinite which envelops everything that is finite and limited, and therefore transitory. We may take this experience as being somewhat akin to a totalistic intuition of something that transcends all our particularized specified experiences. Wisdom paramita or the path of wisdom means transcendental knowledge. This is what constitutes enlightenment. It is an intuition into the power to discern reality or truth, or into the ultimate truth of things, by gaining which one is released from the bondage of existence and becomes master of oneself. Wisdom paramita is used to destroy ignorance and stupidity. The prajna paramita is a gate of Dharma illumination, for with it, we eradicate the darkness of ignorance. Among the basic desires and passions, ignorance has the deepest roots. When these roots are loosened, all other desires and passions, greed, anger, attachment, arrogance, doubt, and wrong views are also uprooted. The prajna wisdom which enables one to reach the other shore, i.e. wisdom for salvation, the highest of the 6 paramitas, the virtue of wisdom as the principal means of attaining nirvana. It connotes a knowledge of the illusory character of everything earthly, and destroys error, ignorance, prejudice, and heresy. In order to obtain wisdom paramita, practitioner must make a great effort to meditate on the truths of impermanence, no self, and the dependent origination of all things. Once the roots of ignorance are severed, we can not only liberate ourselves, but also teach and guide foolish beings to break through the imprisonment of birth and death. The prajna paramita is the wisdom which enables one to reach the other shore, i.e. wisdom for salvation, the highest of the 6 paramitas, the virtue of wisdom as the principal means of attaining nirvana. It connotes a knowledge of the illusory character of everything earthly, and destroys error, ignorance, prejudice, and heresy. The prajna paramita is a gate of Dharma illumination, for with it, we eradicate the darkness of ignorance. Among the basic desires and passions, ignorance has the deepest roots. When these roots are loosened, all other desires and passions, greed, anger, attachment, arrogance, doubt, and wrong views are also uprooted. In order to obtain wisdom paramita, practitioner must make a great effort to meditate on the truths of impermanence, no self, and the dependent origination of all things. Once the roots of ignorance are severed, we can not only liberate ourselves, but also teach and guide foolish beings to break through the imprisonment of birth and death. 263. Dhyana paramita. Dhyana means meditation, not in the sense of meditating on a moral maxim or a philosophical saying, but the disciplining of oneself in tranquilization. In other words, dhyana, meditation, contemplation, quiet thoughts, abstraction, serenity, means the path of concentration of mind to stop the scattered mind. Meditation paramita is used to destroy chaos and drowsiness. Dhyana is retaining one's tranquil state of mind in any circumstance, unfavorable as well as favorable, and not being at all disturbed or frustrated, even when adverse situations present themselves one after another. This requires a great deal of training. We practice meditation because we want to concentrate our mind until there are no more idle thoughts, so that our wisdom can manifest. The attainment of perfection in the mystic trance, crossing the shore of birth and death. This is the fifth of the 6 paramitas. Dhyana in Sanskrit and Zenjo in Japanese. Zen means a quiet mind or an unbending spirit, and Jo indicates the state of having a calm, unagitated mind. It is important for us not only to devote ourselves to the practice of the Buddha's teachings, but also to view things thoroughly with a calm mind, and to think them over well. Then we can see the true aspect of all things and discover the right way to cope with them. According to the Lotus Sutra, chapter XV emerging from the earth, the Buddha taught the dhyana paramita which bodhisattvas attained not only in one kalpa but numerous. These bodhisattvas have already for immeasurable thousands, 10,000s, millions of kalpas applied themselves diligently and earnestly for the sake of the Buddha way. They have acquired great transcendental powers, have over a long period carried out Brahma practices, and have been able to step by step to practice various good doctrines, becoming skilled in questions and answers, something seldom known in the world. 264. Recompensations. The pain or pleasure resulting in this life from the practices or causes and retributions of a previous life. Therefore, ancient virtue said, if we wish to know what our lives were like in the past, just look at the retributions we are experiencing currently in this life. If we wish to know what retributions will happen to us in the future, just look and examine the actions we have created or are creating in this life. If we understand clearly this theory, then in our daily activities, sincere Buddhists are able to avoid unwholesome deeds and practice wholesome deeds. The effect by causing a further effect becomes also a cause. Karma reward, the retribution of karma, good or evil. However, according to the Huayan sect, the body of karmic retribution, especially that assumed by a bodhisattva to accord with the conditions of those he seeks to save. There are 2 kinds of reward. First, the material environment on which a person depends, resulting from former karma. Buddhist doctrine believes that direct retribution of individuals' previous existence and the dependent condition or environment created by the being's minds. Second, direct reward, body or person. The body is the direct fruit of the previous life, the environment is the indirect fruit of the previous life. Being the resultant person, good or bad, depends on or results from former karma. Direct retribution of the individual's previous existence, such as being born as a man, is the result of keeping the 5 basic commandments for being reborn as a man. There are also 3 recompenses. First, immediate result or immediate retribution, or recompense in the present life for deeds done now. Recompenses in the present life for deeds done now, or result that happens in this present life. Present life recompense for good or evil done in the present life. For example, if wholesome karma are created in this life, it is possible to reap those meritorious retributions in this present life. If evil karma are committed in this life, then the evil consequences will occur in this life. Second, future result or next life. Retribution or rebirth retribution. Recompenses in the next rebirth for deeds done now. Recompenses in the next rebirth for deeds now done, or future result which will happen in the next life. One of the 3 and 4 retributions, life's retribution. The deeds, wholesome or unwholesome, done in this life produce their results, meritorious retributions or evil karma, in the next reincarnation. Third, deferred result or future retribution. This is the recompenses in subsequent life. Recompenses in subsequent lives, or result that is deferred for some time to come. The retribution received in the next or further incarnation for the deeds done in this life. Wholesome and unwholesome karma are created in this life, but sometimes the karma will pass through the second, third life, or even longer, before one is able to reap the meritorious retributions or endure the evil consequences. Whether these future retributions are earlier or later is not absolute, but it is absolutely unavoidable. If there is action, whether it is good or evil, there will be consequences sooner or later. Ancient sages taught, the heaven's net may be thin, but even a hair will not fall through, and supposing hundreds of thousands of lives have passed, but the karma created still remains, when destinies, circumstances come to fruition, the appropriate retributions will not be denied. There are some noticeable situations which Buddhists should clearly understand to prevent any misunderstanding about the law of cause and effect. Those who commit evil in this life, yet continue to prosper, it is because they have only began to commit transgressions in this life. However, in the former lives, they have already formed wholesome merits, make offerings and charitable donations. The evil deeds of this life which have just been planted have not had the proper time to form unwholesome consequences, while the wholesome deeds in the former lives planted long ago have had the time to come to fruition in the present life. There are also other circumstances where people practice good deeds, yet they continue to suffer, experience setbacks, misfortunes, etc. That is because they have just learned to practice wholesome conducts in the present life. Otherwise, in the former lives, they have created many unwholesome deeds. The wholesome deeds in this life have just been planted, have not had the proper time to grow into wholesome fruition. However, the wholesome and wicked deeds in the former lives which had been planted long ago have had the proper time to come to fruition in the present life. This is one of the three consequences associated with the causes for a child to be born into a certain family. Transgressions or wholesome deeds we perform in this life, we will not receive good or bad results in the next life. However, good or bad results can appear in the third, fourth or thousandth lifetime, or until untold eons in the future. Also, there are four kinds of retribution. First, action to receive retribution immediately. Second, action to receive retribution in the present life. Third, action to receive retribution in the life to come. Fourth, action to receive retribution in one of the lives following the next. 265. 6 Recompensations. In the Surangama Sutra, Book 8, the Buddha reminded Ananda about the 6 retributions as follows. Ananda. Living beings create karma with their 6 consciousnesses. The evil retributions they call down upon themselves come from the 6 sense organs. The first recompensation is the retribution of seeing. Retribution of seeing, which beckons one and leads one to evil ends. The karma of seeing intermingles, so that at the time of death one first sees a raging conflagration which fills the 10 directions. The deceased one's spiritual consciousness takes flight, but then falls. Riding on a wisp of smoke, it enters the intermittent hell. There, it is aware of 2 appearances. One is a perception of brightness in which can be seen all sorts of evil things, and it gives rise to boundless fear. The second one is a perception of darkness in which there is total stillness and no sight, and it experiences boundless terror. When the fire that comes from seeing burns, the sense of hearing, it becomes cauldrons of boiling water and molten copper. When it burns the breath, it becomes black smoke and purple fumes. When it burns the sense of taste, it becomes the scorching hot pellets and molten iron gruel. When it burns the sense of touch, it becomes white-hot ember and glowing coals. When it burns the mind, it becomes stars of fire that shower everywhere and whip up and inflame the entire realm of space. The second recompensation is the retribution of hearing. Retribution of hearing, which beckons one and leads one to evil ends. The karma of hearing intermingles, and thus at the time of death honor first sees gigantic waves that adorn heaven and earth. The deceased one's spiritual consciousness falls into the water and rides the current into the intermittent hell. There, it is aware of 2 sensations. One is open hearing, in which it hears all sorts of noise, and its essential spirit becomes confused, and the second is closed hearing, in which there is total stillness and no hearing, and its soul sinks into oblivion. When the waves from hearing flow into the hearing, they become scolding and interrogation. When they flow into the seeing, they become thunder and roaring, the evil poisonous vapors. When they flow into the breath, they become rain and fog that is permeated with poisonous organisms that entirely fill up the body. When they flow into the sense of taste, they become pus and blood and every kind of filth. When they flow into the sense of touch, they become animal and ghosts, and excrement and urine. When they flow into the mind, they become lightning and hail which ravage the heart and soul. The third recompensation is the retribution of smelling. The retribution of smelling, which beckons one and leads one to evil ends. The karma of smelling intermingles, and thus at the time of death one first sees a poisonous smoke that permeates the atmosphere near and far. The deceased one's spiritual consciousness wells up out of the earth and enters the unintermittent hell. There, it is aware of two sensations. One is unobstructed smelling, in which it is thoroughly infused with the evil vapors, and its mind becomes distressed, and the second is obstructed smelling, in which its breath is cut off and there is no passage, and it lies stifled and suffocating on the ground. When the vapor of smelling invades the breath, it becomes cross-examination and bearing witness. When it invades the seeing, it becomes fire and torches. When it invades the hearing, it becomes sinking and drowning, oceans, and bubbling cauldrons. When it invades the sense of taste, it becomes putrid or rancid foods. When it invades the sense of touch, it becomes ripping apart and beating to a pulp. It also becomes a huge mountain of flesh which has 100,000 eyes, and which is sucked and fed upon by numberless worms. When it invades the mind, it becomes ashes, pestilent airs, and flying sand and gravel which cut the body to ribbons. The fourth recompensation is the retribution of tasting. The retribution of tasting, which beckons and leads one to evil ends. This karma of tasting intermingles, and thus at the time of death one first sees an iron net ablaze with a raging fire that covers over the entire world. The deceased one's spiritual consciousness passes down through this hanging net, and suspended upside down, it enters the unintermittent hell. There, it is aware of two sensations. One is a sucking air which congeals into ice, so that it freezes the flesh of his body, and the second a spitting blast of air which spews out a raging fire that roasts his bones and marrow to a pulp. When the tasting of flavors passes through the sense of taste, it becomes what must be acknowledged and what must be endured. When it passes through the seeing, it becomes burning metal and stones. When it passes through the hearing, it becomes sharp weapons and knives. When it passes through the sense of smell, it becomes a vast iron cage that encloses the entire land. When it passes through the sense of touch, it becomes bows and arrows, crossbows, and darts. When it passes through the mind, it becomes flying pieces of molten iron that rain down from out of space. The fifth recompensation is the retribution of touching. The retribution of touching which beckons and leads one to evil ends. The karma of touching intermingles, and thus at the time of death one first sees huge mountains closing in on one from four sides, leaving no path of escape. The deceased one's spiritual consciousness then sees a vast iron city. Fiery snakes and fiery dogs, wolves, lions, ox-headed jail-keepers, and horse-headed rakshasas brandishing spears and lances drive it into the iron city toward the unintermittent hell. There, it is aware of two sensations. One is touch that involves coming together, in which mountains come together to squeeze its body until its flesh, bones, and blood are totally dispersed, and the second is touch that involves separation, in which knives and swords attack the body, ripping the heart and liver to shreds. When this touching passes through the sensation of touch, it becomes striking, binding, stabbing, and piercing. When it passes through the seeing, it becomes burning and scorching. When it passes through the hearing, it becomes questioning, investigating, court examinations, and interrogation. When it passes through the sense of smell, it becomes enclosures, bags, beating, and binding up. When it passes through the sense of taste, it becomes plowing, pinching, chopping, and severing. When it passes through the mind, it becomes falling, flying, frying, and broiling. The sixth recompensation is the retribution of thinking. The retribution of thinking, which beckons and leads one to evil ends. The karma of thinking intermingles, and thus at the time of death, one first sees a foul wind which devastates the land. The deceased one's spiritual consciousness is blown up into space, and then, spiraling downward, It rides that wind straight into the unintermittent hell. There, it is aware of two sensations. One is extreme confusion, which causes it to be frantic and to race about ceaselessly, and the second is not confusion, but rather an acute awareness which causes it to suffer from endless roasting and burning, the extreme pain of which is difficult to bear. When this deviant thought combines with thinking, it becomes locations and places. When it combines with seeing, it becomes inspection and testimonies. When it combines with hearing, it becomes huge crushing rocks, ice, and frost, dirt and fog. When it combines with smelling, it becomes a great fiery car, a fiery boat, and a fiery jail. When it combines with tasting, it becomes loud calling, wailing, and regretful crying. When it combines with touch, it becomes sensations large and small, where 10,000 births and 10,000 deaths are endured every day, and of lying with one's face to the ground. 266. Bodhisattva Precepts. The precepts of a Mahayana Bodhisattva. There are 10 major and 48 minor. Any people can take the Bodhisattva ordination. This is dosed not only with the determination to be free from cyclic existence, but also with the motivation of attaining enlightenment in order to benefit all beings. The Bodhisattva vows work particularly to subdue the selfish attitude. They deal not only with our physical and verbal actions, but also with our thoughts and attitudes. Thus, they're more difficult to keep than the vows for individual liberation. The Bodhisattva ordination is found only in the Mahayana traditions. It may be taken by lay people, monks, and nuns. Although the essence is the same, the enumeration of the precepts varies in the Tibetan and Chinese versions. When taking these precepts, we determine to keep them until attaining enlightenment. To take Bodhisattva vows is entirely voluntary. To take them, we must first understand the advantages of living ethically. There are innumerable benefits, but they may be subsumed by saying that living ethically leads us to liberation and enlightenment, and enables us to make our lives useful for others. Some people hesitate to take Bodhisattva precepts because they feel they can't keep them purely. But we shouldn't expect ourselves to be perfect from the outset. If we could protect our precepts without one blemish, we need take them, because we'd already be an arhat or a Buddha. Devout Buddhists should always remember that precepts are taken because we can't keep them perfectly. But through trying to, our actions, speech and attitudes will improve. On the contrary, we should not take precepts if we feel we are not ready or incapable of maintaining them. To keep our precepts, we need to be very conscientious and mindful. Should we transgress them, we can employ the 4 opponent powers: regret, refuge with the altruistic intention, remedial action, and the determination not to repeat the negative action. To purify the imprints left on our mind streams. To devout Buddhists, precepts should be regarded as the ornaments of a sincere practitioner. The 10 major precepts are the 10 weighty prohibitions. In the Brahma Net Sutra, the Buddha said to his disciples, "If one receives the precepts, but fails to keep, observe, practice them, he is not a bodhisattva, nor he is a seed of Buddhahood." I, too, recite these precepts. All bodhisattvas have studied them in the past, will study in the future, and are studying them now. I have explained the main characteristics of the bodhisattva precepts. You should study and observe them with all your heart. 26. Arrogance. Devout Buddhists should always remember that envy is generated by one's feeling of inferiority, while pride, haughtiness, and arrogance are born from a false sense of superiority. These kinds of pride and arrogance are caused by looking at things from a distorted, self-centered point of view. Those who have truly understood the Buddha's teachings and been able to obtain a right view of things will never succumb to such warped thinking. There are many different kinds of arrogance. The first kind of pride is the arrogance in progress and the delusion that one has attained nirvana. This is one of the 10 stages or objects in meditation. The second kind of pride is the self-superiority, or self-sufficiency, or the pride of self. The third kind of pride is the exalting self and depreciating others, or the self-intoxication or pride of self. The fourth kind of pride is the ego conceit or the egotism. According to the Kosa Sastra, there are 7 pretensions or arrogances. First, asserting superiority over inferiors and equality with equals. Second, the pride which among equals regards self as superior and among superiors as equal, superiority over equals and equality with superiors. Third, superiority over manifest superiors. Fourth, egotism or overweening pride. Fifth, vaunting assertion of possessing the truth. Sixth, vaunting one's inferiority or false humility. The pride of regarding self as little inferior to those who far surpass one. Seventh, vaunting lack of virtue for virtue. 268. Buddhadatta. Buddhadatta means supreme truth or ultimate truth or absolute truth. Ultimate truth means the final nature of reality, which is unconditioned, as Samskrita, and which neither is produced nor ceases. It is equated with emptiness, sunyata, and truth body, dharma kaya, and is contrasted with conventional truths, samvati satya, which are produced and ceased by causes and conditions and impermanence, anitya. The absolute truth, transcending dichotomies, as taught by the Buddhas. The absolute truth, or the truth of the void, manifests. This is the end of this video. If you're enjoying and benefit from this video and want to see more awesome content like this, please consider hitting that subscribe button below. It's the best way to stay updated with all of our latest videos. And if you found this video beneficial, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. Your support means the world to us, and it helps our channel grow. Thank you for being part of our incredible community. Together, we can make this channel even more fantastic. Stay tuned for more beneficial content coming your way. Thank you.